The wind howled off Lake Michigan, rattling the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse apartment. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the city of Chicago was being pummeled by a relentless autumn storm. Maya paced the expanse of her living room, her bare feet silent on the cold hardwood. Every few seconds her eyes darted to the marble countertop where her phone lay, ominously silent. Derek was never this late without a text. As a high-stakes hedge fund manager, his hours were unpredictable, but his communication had always been precise, until recently. For the past month a distance had grown between them, a chasm filled with curt replies and locked screens. Maya wrapped her cashmere cardigan tighter around herself, trying to ward off a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty windows. She poured herself a third cup of herbal tea she had no intention of drinking. They had argued that morning. It was a stupid circular argument about finances. Maya had questioned a large withdrawal from their joint savings, and Derek had exploded, accusing her of suffocating him, of not trusting his vision. He had stormed out, leaving a heavy silence that had lingered all day. At 12:03 a.m. the landline rang. The sound was archaic and piercing in the quiet apartment. Maya froze. Nobody called the landline. It was a relic they kept only for the security system. She picked it up with a trembling hand. "Hello. Is this Maya Vance?" The voice on the other end was clipped, efficient, and devoid of warmth. "Yes, this is she. Mrs. Vance, this is Dr. Helena Cross from Metropolitan Grace Hospital. I'm afraid I have bad news regarding your husband, Derek." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Maya gripped the edge of the counter. "Derek? Is he okay? Your husband was involved in a multi-vehicle collision on I-90. He has been airlifted to our trauma center. He has sustained severe abdominal trauma and internal hemorrhaging. We are prepping him for emergency surgery as we speak." The medical jargon washed over her like ice water. Hemorrhaging. Trauma. Surgery. "I'm coming," Maya choked out. "I'm coming right now. Please hurry," Dr. Cross said, her voice dropping an octave, becoming grave. "The next hour is critical. Drive safely, Mrs. Vance." The line went dead. Maya stood paralyzed for a heartbeat, the silence of the apartment now screaming at her. The anger from this morning evaporated, replaced by a suffocating dread. She grabbed her keys, not bothering to change out of her lounge clothes. As Maya rushed to the elevator, her phone finally buzzed with a delayed notification. It was a text from Derek sent hours ago but only delivering now. "I'm sorry about earlier. I have a surprise for you tonight that changes everything." The storm had turned Chicago's streets into rivers of black oil and reflected neon. Maya's knuckles were white as she gripped the steering wheel of her SUV, fighting the hydroplaning tires. The wipers thrashed frantically against the windshield, unable to keep up with the deluge. Metropolitan Grace Hospital was usually a 20-minute drive from their Gold Coast apartment, but tonight, the city felt like an obstacle course designed to keep her from him. Every red light was an eternity. Every slow-moving car felt like a personal affront. Her mind replayed the last few weeks on a loop. The hushed phone calls Derek would take on the balcony. The way he had insisted on updating his life insurance policy 3 weeks ago, claiming it was a mandatory portfolio requirement for his new partners. She had signed the papers without reading the fine print, trusting him implicitly despite their recent friction. "Please, Derek," she whispered to the empty car, tears hot on her cheeks. "Don't leave me like this. Not after a fight." She swerved around a taxi, narrowly missing a delivery truck. The GPS indicated 5 minutes remaining. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She thought of his surprise text. Was he planning a vacation? A reconciliation dinner? The guilt of her earlier suspicions gnawed at her gut. She had accused him of gambling again. He had sworn he was clean. The towering brutalist structure of Metropolitan Grace loomed out of the rain, a beacon of harsh white light. Maya abandoned her car in the emergency drop-off zone, ignoring the shouts of the valet. She sprinted through the sliding glass doors, the rain soaking through her thin cardigan instantly. "My husband, Derek Vance!" she screamed at the triage nurse, her hair plastered to her face, breathless and wild-eyed. The nurse typed slowly, agonizingly slowly. "Vance, yes. Trauma unit. They've just moved him up to surgical suite 4. Take the west elevator to the 4th floor. Maya didn't wait for the elevator. She saw the stairwell door and burst through it, taking the steps 2 at a time. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but adrenaline pushed her upward. 1st floor. 2nd. 3rd. 4th. She burst into the surgical corridor. It was eerily quiet, the air thick with the smell of antiseptic and floor wax. At the end of the long hallway, red letters glowed above a set of double doors. Maya sprinted toward the doors, ready to demand answers, ready to be by his side. She was 10 feet away when a hand shot out from a darkened alcove and clamped over her mouth, dragging her violently into the shadows. Maya struggled, her heels skidding on the linoleum, a muffled scream dying in her throat against the latex-gloved hand. Panic flared. Was this a mugging? Here in the hospital? Shoo! If you want to live, you need to be quiet. A voice hissed in her ear. It was a woman's voice, trembling with terror. The grip loosened slightly and Maya spun around, ready to fight. Standing before her was a young nurse, her eyes wide behind thick-rimmed glasses, her name tag reading Kira Surgical Nursing. What are you doing? My husband is in there. Maya whispered furiously, pointing toward the operating room. No, Kira said, shaking her head frantically. She grabbed Maya's shoulders, her grip bruising. You cannot go in there. Do not let them see you. They are waiting for you. Who? Doctors? I need to see Dr. Cross. Dr. Cross is the reason you have to hide, Kira whispered, dragging Maya further back into the alcove, away from the security cameras. Listen to me closely. Your husband isn't dying. There was no accident on I-90. The trauma report is fake. Maya stared at her, her brain unable to process the words. That's insane. Dr. Cross called me herself. She said. She lied. Kira cut in, tears welling in her eyes. I saw the pre-op charts. I saw the blood bags. They're props, Maya. They're theater props. This isn't a surgery. It's a performance. And you're the audience they're preparing to trap. The doors to the operating room clicked. The red light above the door flickered. They're coming out, Kira gasped. She looked around desperately and spotted a door marked sterile supply just across the hall. In there. Now. Do not make a sound no matter what you see. She shoved Maya into the dark closet and pulled the door shut, leaving it cracked open a fraction of an inch. Maya stood in the pitch black, surrounded by shelves of gauze and saline, her heart thundering so loud she was sure it would give her away. She pressed her eye to the sliver of light between the door and the frame. The hallway was silent. Then, the double doors of operating room 4 swung open with a hydraulic hiss. Maya expected to see a gurney. She expected a shroud. Instead, she heard laughter. Familiar, deep booming laughter that made her blood run cold. Through the narrow gap, Maya watched the surreal scene unfold. The first person to step out was Dr. Helena Cross. She was an imposing woman with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob. She pulled off her surgical mask, revealing a face not etched with the fatigue of saving a life, but bright with triumph. Then came the second figure. Maya clamped both hands over her mouth to stifle a scream. It was Derek. Her husband, who was supposedly fighting for his life with severe internal hemorrhaging, walked out of the operating room on his own 2 feet. He wasn't limping. He wasn't pale. He was stretching his arms over his head, rotating his neck as if he'd just woken up from a long nap. God, my back, Derek groaned, his voice clear and strong. That table is murder. Remind me to upgrade the padding in the VIP suite next time. Dr. Cross chuckled, tossing her gloves into a biohazard bin. I think you'll survive the discomfort, Derek. Considering the payout involved, a stiff back is a small price to pay. A third person emerged from the OR, carrying a bundle of clothes. It was a woman, tall and striking, with platinum blonde hair and a tight pencil skirt that looked out of place in a surgical wing. Maya recognized her instantly. Sienna, Derek's executive assistant. The woman Maya had been assured was strictly professional despite the late-night strategy meetings. Here, Sienna purred, handing Derek a bottle of water and a towel. Wipe off the makeup. You look a little too healthy for a man on death's door. Derek took the water and winked at her. Don't worry, babe. Once I'm in the bed, I'll play the part. I took drama in college, remember? Maya felt the floor sway beneath her. The betrayal was a physical blow. A punch to the gut that left her gasping for air. The surprise he had texted about. This was it. Not a reconciliation. An exit strategy. Is the wife here yet? Derek asked, taking a long swig of water. The casual way he referred to her, the wife, stung more than the deception. Security says her car just screeched into the drop-off. Dr. Cross checked her watch. She should be running up the stairs any minute. She's predictable. Emotional. Easy to manipulate. Good. Derek smiled. A cold expression that transformed his handsome face into something predatory. Let's get the stage set for Act 2. I want her crying and hysterical before we ask for the signature. It makes the coroner's report so much more believable later. Maya stood frozen in the supply closet, tears streaming silently down her face. Act 2? Coroner's report? The horror of their words began to sink in. This wasn't just about faking an injury for money. This was about eliminating her. In the hallway, the trio stopped near the nurse's station, assuming they were alone on the empty floor. Refresh my memory on the timeline, Helena, Derek said, leaning against the counter. I want to make sure we don't slip up. Dr. Cross smoothed her scrubs. It's simple. You're in recovery. Stable but critical. I bring Maya in. We tell her the surgery went well, but we found a secondary issue, an aortic aneurysm that looks unstable. It's rare, undetectable without surgery, and fatal if it ruptures. And that's when I give my tearful goodbye? Derek mocked. No, Sienna corrected him, running a hand down his arm. That's when you beg her to authorize the emergency procedure to fix it, because you're too drugged to consent for yourself legally, and time is of the essence. Right, Derek nodded. She signs the consent for the second surgery. Then what? Then, Dr. Cross's voice dropped to a whisper that barely carried to the closet. Maya goes to the waiting room. I come out 20 minutes later with the tragic news. Complications during the procedure. We couldn't save her. Maya's breath caught. They weren't planning to kill Derek. They were planning to kill her. But how? The realization hit her a second later. Wait, Derek frowned. We're switching the charts, right? I don't want any mix-ups. The paperwork is already prepped, Cross assured him. The consent form she signs will have a rider attached. It authorizes a donor compatibility screening for her. An immediate procedure. We sedate her under the guise of calming her shock. Once she's under, we take her to or two. An unfortunate reaction to the sedative combined with undiagnosed cardiac stress. It happens. The widow dies of a broken heart, medically speaking. And the insurance pays out double indemnity for both of us? Sienna asked, her eyes gleaming. Triple, Derek corrected. The partner survivor clause. It's brilliant. Maya clamped her hands over her ears, trying to block out the monstrous conversation. They were going to gaslight her into signing a form, drug her, and murder her in a sterile room, passing it off as medical tragedy. As the group laughed and moved toward the recovery wing, the door to the supply closet clicked open. Nurse Kira slipped inside, her face pale as a sheet. You heard them, she whispered. Now you know why you can't leave. They have security at every exit looking for a grieving widow. If you try to run, they'll sedate you in the lobby. Why are you helping me? Maya asked, her voice trembling as she huddled amidst the shelves of surgical drapes. You work for them. Kira shook her head vehemently. I work for the hospital. Dr. Cross. She owns people. She has debts, massive gambling debts in Macau. That's how she funds it. This isn't the first time, Mrs. Vance. Maya stared at the young nurse. You mean they've done this before? We call it the Black Widow Protocol, Kira explained, checking the hallway through the crack. Usually, it's elderly patients with no family. They manipulate the wills, accelerate the end. But this? Doing it to a healthy young woman. It's bold. Desperate. Derek must have promised her a massive cut. 5 million, Maya whispered, remembering the policy value. The policy was for 10 million, growing to 20 with the accidental death riders. That explains the sloppy setup, Kira said. They're rushing. Usually Cross is meticulous. But tonight there are holes. The fake accident report on the I-90. I checked the police scanner. There was no crash reported tonight. They generated a fake intake log in the hospital server. Maya's mind raced. If I can prove that. If I can prove the accident never happened. It's not enough, Kira warned. They'll say it was a clerical error. You need the charts. The real ones. Dr. Cross keeps a shadow file for her special patients in her office. It has the real vitals, the real timeline. It's her insurance policy in case her partners try to stiff her. Where is her office? Basement level. Next to the morgue. But you can't go down there yet. They are expecting you to walk into recovery room 2 right now. If you don't show up, they'll lock down the hospital. They'll hunt you. Maya wiped her face, her expression hardening. The fear was still there, churning in her stomach, but it was being overtaken by a cold, burning rage. Derek. The man she had loved for 7 years. The man she had built a life with. He was willing to stop her heart for a wire transfer. So I have to play the part, Maya said, her voice steadying. I have to walk in there and hug the man who wants to kill me. You have to buy us time, Kira nodded. Go in. Act devastated. When they produce the papers, stall. Faint, vomit, do whatever you have to do to get out of the room without signing. I'll create a distraction to get you to the basement. At that moment, the PA system crackled to life. Mrs. Maya Vance. Please report to the surgical recovery wing immediately. Mrs. Maya Vance. The voice was Dr. Cross's, smooth, professional, and deadly. Maya stepped out of the closet. She didn't smooth her hair or wipe her eyes. Instead, she messed up her clothes further, rubbing her eyes until they were red and puffy. If they wanted a hysterical, broken wife, she would give them an Academy Award performance. You can do this, Kira whispered, disappearing toward the nurse's station. Maya walked down the long, sterile corridor. Her legs felt like lead, but she forced them to move. She reached the door marked Recovery 2. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, she pushed it open. The room was dimly lit. Machines beeped rhythmically. In the center of the room, lying in a hospital bed, was Derek. He looked pale, likely due to makeup, and an 4-line ran into his arm. Dr. Cross stood by the monitors looking grave. Sienna was nowhere to be seen, likely hiding to avoid complicating the narrative. Maya, Dr. Cross said softly, approaching her with open arms. Thank goodness you're here. Derek. Maya wailed, throwing herself toward the bed. She grabbed Derek's hand, the hand that had held hers at their wedding, the hand that had signed her death warrant. Oh God, Derek, please be okay. Derek's eyes fluttered open. He offered a weak, trembling smile. Hey baby. I'm still here. The sound of his voice, feigning weakness, made Maya want to scream. She squeezed his hand, digging her nails in slightly, imagining she was crushing the bones. They told me it was bad. They told me you were bleeding. We stopped the hemorrhage, Dr. Cross interjected smoothly, placing a hand on Maya's shoulder. Her touch felt like a brand. He is stable for now. But Maya, we need to talk. Time is very short. Maya looked up, widening her eyes in mock terror. What? What is it? While we were operating, we found an aneurysm on his descending aorta. It's critical. It could burst at any moment. If it does, we lose him. Derek let out a soft groan, playing his cue perfectly. I'm scared, Maya. I don't want to die. We need to go back in, Dr. Cross said, producing a clipboard from the end of the bed. We need to operate immediately to clamp it. But because of the sedatives he's already on, Derek cannot legally consent. You have to sign for him. It's the only way to save his life. Dr. Cross held out a pen. The silver barrel glinted in the low light. It wasn't just a pen, it was a weapon. Maya looked at the paper. The text was dense, blurring before her eyes, but she saw the bold words at the bottom. Emergency surgical authorization/spousal proxy. Maya reached for the pen, her hand shaking violently. It wasn't acting. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to run, to smash the clipboard over Cross's head. Just sign right there, honey, Derek whispered, squeezing her hand. Do it for us. For our future. Our future. The audacity of him. Maya brought the pen tip to the paper. I can't read it, she sobbed, dropping the pen. It clattered loudly on the floor. I'm so dizzy. I think I'm going to be sick. She swayed dangerously. Dr. Cross looked annoyed for a split second before masking it with concern. Maya, you need to focus. Derek needs this. I know, Maya cried, clutching her stomach. But I can't breathe. The room is spinning. I need water. Please, I'm going to pass out. She slumped against the wall, sliding down to the floor. I need to call my mother. I can't make this decision alone. What if he dies on the table? I can't have that on my conscience. There is no time for calls. Dr. Cross snapped, her patience fraying. Mrs. Vance, stand up and sign the paper. Hey, Derek said, his voice dropping the weak act for a moment, sharp and commanding. Helena, get her some water. She's in shock. If she passes out, she can't sign anything legally. Dr. Cross grit her teeth. Fine. Stay here. I'll get a sedative to calm her nerves. A sedative. That was the endgame. If Cross left the room to get drugs, she would come back with the syringe that would end Maya's life. Maya scrambled up. No drugs. I just need air. I'm going to vomit. She bolted for the door. Maya, wait. Derek shouted, sitting up fully in the bed, the monitors beeping erratically as he moved. Maya didn't stop. She burst into the hallway, gasping for air. Bathroom, she yelled at a passing orderly. I need a bathroom. She ran toward the women's restroom, but the moment she rounded the corner out of sight of room 2, she sprinted toward the service elevators at the far end of the wing. Just as she reached the elevator bank, the piercing shriek of the fire alarm shattered the air. Strobes flashed blinding white. Code red. Floor 8. Code red. Kira had done it. Chaos erupted. Nurses began herding confused patients into rooms. Security guards ran toward the stairwells, their radios crackling with orders. In the confusion, Maya slipped her ID badge, which she had stolen from Derek's jacket pocket while hugging him, against the reader of the service elevator. The light turned green. Derek had an Access All Areas pass as a board consultant. Another lie, he must have fed the hospital admin. The doors slid open and she stepped into the metal box, slamming the button for B. Basement. As the doors closed, she saw Dr. Cross emerge from the recovery room, looking furious, scanning the hallway for her prey. The elevator descended, leaving the noise of the alarm behind. The air grew colder, damper. The basement of Metropolitan Grace was a labyrinth of utility tunnels, storage cages, and administrative archives. It smelled of mildew and formaldehyde. The doors opened onto a dim concrete corridor. Maya stepped out, her phone flashlight cutting through the gloom. Next to the morgue, Kira had said. She followed the signs: pathology, boiler room, chief of surgery archives. She found the door. It was heavy oak, oddly out of place among the steel industrial doors. Dr. H. Cross. The lock was digital. Maya swiped Derek's card. Red light. Access denied. Damn it, she hissed. She tried again. Denied. She looked around frantically. A fire extinguisher hung on the wall nearby. It was crude, loud, and would definitely trigger an alarm if one wasn't already blaring. But she had no choice. She grabbed the heavy red cylinder. Sorry, Helena, she muttered. Smash. The handle shattered. Smash. The wood splintered around the lock mechanism. With a final kick, the door swung inward. Maya rushed inside. The office was plush, filled with leather furniture and expensive art, clearly funded by illicit means. She went straight to the desk. She ripped open the drawers. Locked. She grabbed a letter opener and pried at the wood. It gave way. Inside, nestled among casino chips and flight tickets to the Cayman Islands, was a red folder labeled Project Vance. Maya's hand shook as she opened the folder. It was all there. A meticulous timeline of the murder. Phase 1. Fabricated trauma. There were emails between Cross and Derek scripting the injuries. Phase 2. Spousal manipulation. Notes on Maya's psychological profile. Easily guilt. Financially illiterate. Rage flared hot and bright. She flipped to the back. There was the real medical chart from Derek's physical 2 days ago. Patient in peak physical condition. No anomalies. And next to it, the fake death certificate for Maya Vance, pre-filled with the time of death. 1:45 a.m. 45 minutes from now. She pulled out her phone and began photographing everything. The emails, the charts, the pre-signed coroner's report. She uploaded them instantly to her cloud drive, then texted the link to her sister in New York and her lawyer. If I stop responding, send this to the FBI immediately, she typed. She needed one more thing. The prompt accident report. Kira said they faked the intake log. She moved to Dr. Cross's computer. It was logged in. She found the server logs. Entry 0:15 a.m. Trauma patient Doe. The source IP address was internal. The entry had been created from this very computer, not the ER intake station. Got you, she whispered. Suddenly, the elevator dinged down the hall. Footsteps echoed on the concrete. Fast, angry footsteps. High heels clicking rapidly. Check the office. It was Sienna's voice. I saw the elevator indicator. She went to the basement. If she finds the files, we're finished, Dr. Cross growled. Maya looked for an exit. There was none. Only the door she had just smashed open. She was trapped. Her eyes darted to a ventilation grate near the floor. Too small. A closet? Too obvious. Then she saw the server room door adjoining the office. Server access. Authorized personnel only. She slipped into the server room, the hum of the massive computer bank swallowing the sound off her breathing. Through the glass panel, she watched as Dr. Cross and Sienna burst into the office, guns drawn. They weren't doctors anymore. They were executioners. Maya crouched behind a rack of blinking servers, holding her breath. The blue LEDs cast long, eerie shadows across the floor. She was here, Cross yelled, seeing the smashed lock. The files are moved. Find her. Sienna shrieked. She can't have gone far. Maya watched them through the glass. She was cornered. If she stayed here, they would sweep the room. If she ran, they would shoot. She looked at the server rack next to her. A bundle of fiber optic cables ran up into the ceiling. The drop ceiling tiles were loose. Before she could move, the door to the server room swung open. Dr. Cross stood there, silhouetted by the office light, a silencer-equipped pistol in her hand. Come out, Maya, Cross called out, her voice echoing over the hum of the fans. We know you're in here. There's nowhere to go. Maya squeezed herself tighter into the gap between the wall and the machine. She gripped her phone. You're making this difficult, Sienna said, stepping in behind Cross. We can still do this the medical way. A simple injection. Painless. Or we can make it a tragic mugging in the basement. That gets messy. Derek won't like messy. Derek isn't here to save you, Cross added. He's upstairs practicing his grieving husband's speech. They began moving down the aisles, checking each row. Row 1. Clear. Row 2. Clear. Maya was in row 4. She needed a weapon. She pulled a heavy cable loose from the rack, sparking a small shower of electricity. Row 3 clear, Sienna announced. Maya looked at the fire suppression system on the wall next to her. Halon gas release manual override. It was dangerous. Halon sucked the oxygen out of the room to kill electrical fires. It would suffocate them all if the doors locked. Sienna turned the corner of row 4. Her eyes locked with Maya's. A cruel smile spread across her face. Found her. She raised her gun. Maya didn't hesitate. She slammed her hand onto the halon release lever. Warning. Gas release imminent. Evacuate. A robotic voice blared. A massive hiss filled the room as white gas began to vent from the ceiling nozzles. Sienna flinched, firing a shot that went wide, sparking off the metal server rack near Maya's head. Get out! Cross screamed, covering her mouth. The gas! But Maya didn't run for the door. She knew the gas displaced oxygen from the floor up. She dropped flat to the ground, pulling her cardigan over her mouth and nose. She kicked Sienna's legs out from under her. Sienna fell hard, the gun skittering away under the racks. Dr. Cross stumbled toward the exit, choking. Maya scrambled on her hands and knees, grabbing the loose cable she had pulled earlier. As Cross reached for the door handle, Maya lunged, wrapping the cable around Cross's ankle and yanking with all her strength. The surgeon went down with a heavy thud, gasping for air as the room filled with the suffocating fog. Maya crawled over them, her vision blurring. She reached the door, pushed it open, and fell out into the hallway, gulping down the stale basement air. She slammed the server room door shut and jammed the broken letter opener from the office into the handle mechanism, trapping them inside. She leaned against the wall, coughing violently. Her phone buzzed. It was her sister. FBI is dispatching units to Metro Grace now. Stay hidden. Maya smiled grimly. She wasn't hiding anymore. She took the elevator back up. Not to the lobby but to the 4th floor. She walked into recovery room 2. Derek was still there, checking his phone, looking bored. He looked up, startled to see her disheveled, covered in dust but alive. Maya? What happened? Where is Helena? Maya stood at the foot of the bed. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She held up her phone, which was currently broadcasting a Facebook Live video to thousands of people. Say hi to your investors, Derek, she said coldly. And the Chicago Police Department. Derek's face went white. He scrambled to get out of bed, ripping the 4 out of his arm. Maya, wait, I can explain. You don't have to, Maya said, stepping back as sirens began to wail outside, growing louder and louder. The evidence is already in the cloud. The photos. The files. The recording of your girlfriend trying to shoot me in the basement. Derek lunged at her, desperation in his eyes. You bitch. Maya sidestepped him easily. He stumbled, weak not from blood loss, but from the realization that his life was over. Security guards, real ones accompanied by uniformed police officers, burst through the double doors. Derek Vance, an officer shouted. Get on the ground. As they cuffed him, Derek looked back at her, eyes wide with disbelief. I did it for us. Maya smoothed her ruined cardigan. She walked over to him, leaned down and whispered, No, Derek. You did it for you. And now I'm going to take everything that's left. The house. The fund. The insurance. I'm the survivor now. She turned and walked out of the hospital room, leaving the fake tragedy behind, stepping into the real storm outside, finally free.